Hey everyone, today I'm going to show you how to do a sky replacement to make your footage go from this to this. So the first thing is I want to take my shot into After Effects. So what I'm going to do is right click and go replace with After Effects composition. That'll open up After Effects and place the clip I have selected into After Effects. So here we have our footage in After Effects. So the first thing I'm going to want to do is make this sky transparent. So to do that, I need to duplicate it. So I'll start naming these layers. This will be my background. And then I want my foreground. And I'm going to need a sky. And so what I did was I went onto the internet and I downloaded a picture of the sky earlier. And here's a picture of my sky. This is the order I want my layers to be in: background, sky, foreground. So let's get started at removing this sky. So the first thing we're going to want to do is select the foreground and select and search for a color key. And we want this one under the obsolete menu. And we take that, drop it on the foreground. And then what you do is you take this eyedropper and select a color of the sky that you want to replace. So we selected it and it gives us a little bit. So what we need to do is increase the tolerance. So as we increase the tolerance, you can see how certain colors are moving away. So if we bring this color tolerance too high, we're going to start losing details in his shirt like this. So what we need to do is we need to create two color keys, one for the right side of frame and one for the left side of frame. So that looks good there. And then I'm going to duplicate this one, reset it, and then select a color up here and increase the color tolerance probably to about there. I don't want to take it too high because I'll start losing details on his shirt once again. And I'm left with a little bit of sky right here. Oh, and we're going to want to feather it maybe 15. And here too, 15. So we're left with a little bit of sky right here, but instead of trying to key it away, what I could do is I could try and mask it away. So if I go up here to my pen tool and we do a mask, we can just make a mask to exclude all of this on the outsides, and it'll get rid of it. And we can feather the mask too to make it nice and smooth. So, as it is right now, it's looking good. When the sticks go up, they go up and we don't see the sky. But this background looks a little weird right now. So what we want to do is blur it. See how the people here are blurred? We want to blur this background just as much. So when we go to our middle layer, we'll call that the sky. We want to do a blur, and we want to do a Gaussian blur on the sky. We want to repeat edge pixels, and our blurriness, depending on what image you're working on, will probably be somewhere around there. Also, the sky is a little bit too bright, so maybe we will adjust the exposure a little bit. And our sky is a little bit high, so we can bring that down a little bit as well. So now let's take a look here. Pretty good, but it doesn't feel exactly right just yet. So I am going to add a lens flare. So Video Copilot makes this really cool effect called optical flares. So I want to create a new solid. So that would be layer, new, solid. It could be any color. We'll leave it at red. And then we'll look for optical flares. If you don't have this plugin, it's not too big of a deal. But if you do, then all the better, because it's a really awesome plugin. And I highly recommend getting it. So when you open optical flares, you'll have a bunch of different options of the types of flares. I usually like real sun. It gives a really cool effect. And you can change the color of the iris and things like that. I usually like a less purpley color iris, maybe something in that spectrum. And we'll go okay. So now we got a cool lens flare, but we don't want to render, we want to see it on top of our footage. So if we render on transparent, that will give us a cool little thing, but it's still not right. When you add more light to something that's already lit, it's called additive light. So when we go here, we want to go into the mode of our lens flare, and we want to go to add. And what that will do is it'll make it properly add to the scene. It's a little too bright right now, but we can make it a little dimmer. And I don't necessarily want it on screen. We can tell that the light is coming and hitting him on his back and wrapping around him that way. So our sun would probably be somewhere right here. And then what we can also do is adjust our center position. So what the center position is going to do is it'll dictate where we see this flare. So if you see in the lower right, you can see how we get the flare right around there. So it's a subtle little thing, but it also helps sell that summertime sky. And that's about it. We've got a nice little sky replacement. So now we can go back and see how it looked before and after. So let's try it one more time. Let's try it with this shot of the girl. So this shot is going to be a little bit trickier because the color of the sky is very similar to the color of this sand, and that creates a few more predicaments. So let's see how we can solve this problem. Again, bringing in After Effects. Okay, so now we've got our background. We've got our foreground. And we've got our sky. So in this one, if I were to just do a regular color key and drop it on the foreground and try and select that, I can remove a lot of the sky, but the problem is that when I get down to this sand, I start losing details. So I could duplicate again, and I could select something down here, which works, but again, we're losing a few details here and there, and I could do it even again and get rid of this if I wanted to. So there's a few things we're missing here. So if we were to solo this, we can see that we're losing her in the little flowers here. We're losing it in a little bit of this bucket here. And it doesn't look perfect. And we give it a little bit of feather. So what we're going to do instead is fill our background. And luckily, the camera doesn't move much at all. So let's go into our background and we can make a mask. And we need to make the mask pretty precise on this. So I'm going to zoom in and make a mask. And I'll fast forward through this. So here presents a problem because our bucket moves throughout the scene. So what that means is I'm going to have to do more of a general mask when it comes to her hands. So I'm going to undo all these little track points, and I'll make it, I already know this bucket is good. So also I want to include some of her flowers so they don't get taken out by my key. And once I get back down here to the sand, everything is good again. So now in my background, I've got this, which looks a little weird, but once you layer it with the girl, it all works out. So now you can see what's happening here is we had some gaps here and we filled them in a little bit. And we can also feather it a little bit as well. Maybe to about there to give it a little bit of leeway. And then we could bring our sky back in. Our sky is a little bit too high right now, so I'll bring it down to about there, we'll say. And we need to do another Gaussian blur. Because it's the background, we need to blur the background to make it match with the camera. So we can go out there. It's a little bit too saturated. So we can take the saturation down a little bit. And that's about good. And so here I'm not going to do the optical flares because we can see that there's no hard sunlight on the girl. So it wouldn't really make too much sense to put in the optical flare. But if we wanted to, we always could. Now, if we look at it, everything seems to work. That concludes this video. Again, practice makes perfect, so try it on this footage, try it on your friend's footage, try it on any footage you can find, and the more you do it, the better you'll get.